All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Soft Elbows. To my right, I think, is Abby, host number one. Abby, how you doing?
Doing great.
And host number two, the little elbow that could. How's your elbow doing? Still attached.
She's
Love
still
that.
here. She's in the
Looking
building.
less bruised than usual. That's cool.
Wait, does it usually look really that bad?
Yeah, like when you just had the surgery done, it looked like you
Oh,
just
that
had
was
surgery done.
foul.
And our special guest today, two-time American Open champion Caleb Goodman. How are you doing, Caleb?
I'm good. Just happy to be
Why
here.
did
You
why
were
did you say
almost
his
off
name
to a
like
bad
that?
start. I legitimately almost mispronounced your name, which is not like a super hard name to mispronounce. I don't know why I wanted to call you Caleb Good, and I was just going to stop there, which is wild.
Caleb's pretty good.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
Caleb's very good, but his name is in fact Caleb Goodman. So we'll call you by your actual name. You know, if you're one of those like super uppity folks who insist on being called by their name, I guess.
no, my girlfriend's last name is Good, so I'll just take her name instead.
Wait, is it really?
It is, yeah.
All right. Well, I was just presuming something in the
Nice.
future where you were to take her name.
That would be
Anyway,
very progressive of you. I love that.
There you go,
Caleb, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Just happy you guys are having me. I appreciate it. How are you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So, listen, we're gonna talk more in depth about Caleb and his lifting career and kind of his arc in a little bit. But I want to get something out of the way at the start. I don't know, Caleb, if you're one of the like 7.5 people who watch our show on a regular basis. But on the last episode, something that I said was misinterpreted by Abby and everyone else in the car. We were on our way back from Lift PD's clean event, which you participated in, and I commented how one of the things that I find most impressive about you and your lifting is that like you just look like an average dude. And I didn't mean that as an insult. What I meant was if you saw you walking down the street next to Jacob Herbert and Kane Wilkes, you wouldn't look at the three of you and say, "Oh, I'll bet you Caleb lifts as much as those two." But in fact, as you proved once again at Lift PD, you do, and I mean, this is a compliment. But Abby, of course, took it in a different direction.
First of all, I was definitely not the person that grabbed onto that comment and rolled with it. I just was happy to go along with the person that grabbed that comment and rolled with it. Okay.
Caleb, remind the folks at home what was your max clean at that event?
I remember I had to remind myself because I forgot, but I know that.
Hey, I forget things too. This is great.
I know that me, Jake, and Kane all hit the same weight, and it was 195.
Nice.
195 kilos, which just for anyone at home is roughly 430 pounds. Abby, wouldn't it be neat? Wouldn't it be neat if you could just casually clean 430 pounds and it was such a non-event in your mind that you were just like, oh, what did I lift again? Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I cleaned 430 pounds again. Wouldn't that be cool?
Guy casually just cleaned my second best total ever and, forgot about it. That's cool.
All right. Well, we will get back more into A, Lift PD and B, just kind of you in a second. But we're going to touch on a couple things first. We have a couple of events coming up with many lifters locally lifting in. First one is Nationals, which is at the end of June. We got a bunch of folks from the area who are lifting. In our next episode, we're going to go more into previewing that and highlighting some of the folks who are going to be heading out to Colorado. Caleb, are you heading out to Colorado?
I certainly am. Yes, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. They sent out the preliminary schedule. What day are you competing on?
So I had a conflicting event happening on the weekend. However, I am still eligible to lift in the U25s. So I ended up doing that, registered for both. In years past, they've normally put the folks that registered for both, I guess, in the earliest session that they could.
Yeah.
So I believe I'm lifting Wednesday at like 5 p.m.
Wednesday at 5. I love. So, what do you guys think of? Because they've done this the past couple of years, where it's not just senior nationals; they do essentially all of the national championships all at once, and they make it like a 10-day affair or something like that. You guys like that setup? Do you not like that setup? Do you wish everybody had their own spotlight? Like, how do you feel about that?
I think I'm kind of indifferent about it. If everyone had their own week. I think that'd be cool. I remember back when I was a junior, I think USAW did an event back in California in 2020 where it was, I believe, youth, junior, U25, and universities. Like, it was just age groups that they had national championships for that whole group, essentially, for a week. And then senior nationals, I believe, was its own. I take that back. That was the year that COVID happened. So senior nationals was lumped together with AO finals at the end of the year. But I think seniors are going to be its own thing. But that's just what I've been used to the whole time, and that I don't hate it. So
okay, Abby,
I have opinions.
I can't believe it.
Yeah, shocking. I actually really dislike this format. I understand now. Take this with a grain of salt, because I understand why USAW does this, right? From a volunteer standpoint, getting people to one location for one set period of time, like, it makes sense, right? I remember back in the day, like what Caleb's talking about, when it was all separate. Mario would have to fly out for youth and then he'd fly home. He'd fly out for juniors and then fly home.
Abby, real quick, who's Mario? Remind just for anyone who doesn't know who you're talking about. Who's Mario?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Mario Dispenza, my former weightlifting coach that I worked with for years and years.
Okay.
So he would have athletes at like youth, and then he's also very involved with officiating with USAW and everything. And so he would go to these events all the time. And so he's constantly out of the gym. And so from a time perspective, it gives those people that volunteer, it gives them some time back, right? They got 1 10-day stretch and then they're done for the year, unless they go and do other things. So I understand why logistically it could make sense from an organizational standpoint. From a competitive standpoint, I hate it. I think it is so stupid that we have youth, junior, U25, seniors, because realistically, there are some amazing athletes that are juniors and youth, and they're throwing up numbers that are competitive with the seniors. I want senior nationals, like the national championship to be the national championship. I want the best of the best in the A session, regardless of age, regardless of, whatever. I want them all to be going head to head to head to head, and not broken up over several categories. And like, I think there's a lot of gaming the system when we do it this way, where, there's some athletes that are like, oh, I'm not going to do seniors because I have a chance to medal U25, or I have a chance to medal here or place here, la, 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 la. And so I think it takes away from the notoriety of the national championship. And I have other opinions on, there being so many categories and everything. But that's besides the point, and that's a conversation for another time. But from just a straight up competitive standpoint, I really wish at least seniors was separate, so that not so that seniors can like have their moment to shine, but from a standpoint of, I just want the best lifters lifting in the best session head to head, regardless of their ages.
Okay. Wouldn't one of the downsides to that be that in this specific instance, Caleb wouldn't get to lift at senior nationals then because he's got something else going on? This still enables him and others. It's not just you, but it allows some flexibility. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying about gaming the system and like, I can medal here and not here, so I'm going to enter this instead of that. Like, I get that. But it's not just a logistical issue for USAW, who has limited numbers of volunteers and staff and bandwidth, honestly. But it allows, Caleb to still participate in Nationals Week.
Sure, and that's great for Caleb. And that's great for Caleb, but also, like, at that same time, like, you could say that same thing about any meet. Like, okay, what if I had a conflict for WSOs? I'm not going to get to lift on Wednesday, and still get to be part of WSOs, right? And, like, I understand that WSO is a little bit of a different, like, level, but point still being, like, I still think that ultimately, maybe 1 or 2 lifters would miss out, and that's unfortunate that they would miss out. But I think from just a higher level, big picture, macro level, there would just be more competitiveness overall, and you would maybe miss out on 1 or 2 lifters every year. But like, that's going to happen regardless. People have conflicts that pop up.
Caleb, how do you feel about Abby not caring about your commitments and schedules and just wanting you to bend to her will?
I totally get it. No, I think it makes sense. So it kind of like the national championships, like you're saying, like it's not senior nationals, it's the USAW national championships. It's where the best in the nation come to lift and prove themselves. I mean, it's a notorious event, and that should be the priority, right? If you can't make it, something else is going on in your life. It's up to you to decide which one's going to take precedence. So ultimately, I think if it was the case that this happened, it'd be unfortunate, and I would have to decide. So I definitely think, making the event, I guess, just kind of stand alone makes it more notorious. But I definitely am going to take advantage of the setup it is now. So
yeah, as you should, because that is the situation.
Right.
All right. Well, we will hear more about how Abby doesn't care about anybody else's feelings on our next episode when we talk more in depth about previewing nationals. But for now, we're going to highlight one more upcoming event. We've got Tough Temple Open coming up July 12th and 13th. There are a few spots left. So if you are looking for something fun to do, an event to get some more experience or to try to qualify for something else or whatever, it's a 2-day event. 2 days, one platform. They always, John Weeks does a great job of making that a really cool local meet setup. He's got a lot of vendors and not like, I don't know if we're like supposed to spoil the surprise or whatever, but like he's got vendors that you don't typically see at local meets, which I think makes it a really cool feel. So for anybody who's looking to do that, please sign up. Also, if you're not looking to lift, or if you're looking to lift and hang out, I'm sure, positive in fact, that John would enjoy some volunteers. And I don't think he's put that spreadsheet out yet, but he will. So consider signing up to volunteer. It's a good way to meet folks and get involved in the community, and also just have a good time watching people lift lots of heavy weight.
Yeah, and also, in case you haven't seen my various memes and like reposts about this, Tough Temple does not, in fact, allude to me and Steve going head to head and clocking our skulls together. It is, in fact, a weightlifting event where there is no head bashing. So,
Abby, I feel like if you have to explain the joke, all right. So we got those two events coming up. The next thing we wanted to do, because I feel like more than usual, Abby's poll from this past week got a lot of interesting submissions. The question, Abby, correct me if I'm wrong, was like, what is your weightlifting hot take? Is that right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was like, okay, I have time today. My office is closed. Let's do this one. This has been a hotly asked for poll question for months and months and months, and I finally caved and let the people speak.
Okay, we got a ton of hot takes. We wanted to make sure that we discussed some of them, so I asked Abby to chronicle some of the more notable ones in some way, and we created a list on a text thread that Abby and I have with Kevin Pay, who runs Dido training at Route 7. I'm going to read this list to you, and then we'll discuss each one. I hope you remember what some of these had to do with, because some of these things don't make any sense to me. Item number 1, this is all it says: tired and following yourself. Item number 2, Steve, that wasn't a hot take. What was the hot take there? Anyway, item number 3, shitting on people for using a belt. Item number 4, low bar back squats. So, Abby, I hope you remember what these meant. We'll start with tired and following yourself. It sounds like a Jeopardy category where we're just like, I'll take tired and following yourself for 400. Abby, yeah. What was this topic? And let's discuss it.
I just want to applaud Steve, first of all, for constantly having to decipher my shorthand, because Steve, by and large, gets the large portion of my nonsense text. Like, when I think of a meme or I think of something that I want to turn into something, it goes in my text thread with Steve, and it'll be 6 words that don't form a complete sentence together, and then I'll just send another text. This is thanks. And I hope it gives Steve a laugh, because I think it's hilarious, obviously. So, yes. Anyway, I also want to point out that 5 minutes after I posted that poll, I forgot that I posted that poll, and somebody else texted me, was like, I just sent in so many hot takes, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. um, so the first one, tired and following themselves. I pretty openly disagreed with this one when I reshared it. And by the way, I do that often. I reshare a lot of opinions and things that I don't agree with. So just because I reshare something doesn't mean I'm on your side, for the record.
Hold on. Before we hear your opinion on this, which I want to hear, what was the actual hot take?
Yeah. So the hot take was, if an athlete is tired after too tired after an attempt, like it, or if you get tired between your attempt and then following yourself, then you're not training correctly. You need to rest less during training.
Okay. And your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I very openly disagreed with it. I think that's a terribly broad statement. Maybe for a lifter who is a beginner, and maybe has not really tapped into their potential, and is not lifting maximal attempts at a competition, sure. Like I can do it.
Wow.
See, they agree with me. You should be able to do an every minute on the minute at pretty low percentages. Like I agree with that. However, for a lot of elite lifters who are going into competitions, and maybe your second attempt is like a maximal attempt or a PR attempt, I think it's fair to be tired after you've taken that attempt. And if your clock gets burned, your 2-minute clock gets burned, I think it's fair that you're going to be a little tired before you take your next attempt, regardless of, how conditioned you are. And I don't just say that because of my personal experiences and like having my clock burned and feeling that sensation. I just think that's, I think to a lot of elite level lifters who they come off the platform and like, they're gassed from a maximal level clean and jerk, but they're really pushing it on the platform. And, I can't help but empathize that, like, yeah, like yes, it's part of the game. It's going to happen, but I don't think that it's, indicative of training suboptimally just because you're tired after an attempt.
Abby referenced elite level lifters. She certainly was not referring to me. Caleb, what do you think about this?
I don't think. So I think I think everyone should expect to be put in that position where they might have to take lifts back to back to back. And I think, training for the environment you're going to is also important. So I came from CrossFit. So for me, doing a heavy lift followed by another heavy lift followed by another heavy lift isn't something I'm not used to. I did it when I was in CrossFit. And one thing that my coach, Jake Rowell, has programmed for me and Keisha, who's also going to nationals, are copious amounts of EMOMs, which I think those are great, not only to, if you're looking at it from this point of view of being ready to go out and, take another attempt with a very quick turnaround time from your first, but you're also practicing movements upwards. Lately they've been 80% or more. You're practicing these movements with heavier weights. And I mean, all you're doing is just getting reps in with those. So, but like you said, I think training that is good, but I think there's also a point where it does get annoying if you're facing it every single meet and it's always just, so I definitely get that too. So
yeah, there's a difference between being ready and being prepared for it and just like not expecting to feel tired. I think that's an unrealistic expectation, but I do agree with Caleb that you should be prepared, but like don't expect to not feel tired.
Mm-hmm. I felt about this one the way I felt about many of these hot takes, which is why my brain doesn't work well on the internet, where you have or at least not on social media, where you have like a confined space you're trying to get your point across in, which is I wanted to know more about what exactly they meant. I think, Abby, your point is both you and Kayla were making valid points, but you're operating from the perspective of the elite lifter. I don't know whether that's what this person was referring to, right? And I think it is not impossible. I mean, you guys would know better than I would. I think it's not impossible, but it is less likely at a national level event where you've roughly, the national championships, roughly everybody in your session is going to be around your skill level, right? So it's maybe less likely that you're going to be following yourself at a national event, which is full of elite lifters. Whereas at a local meet where you don't really know until you show up, like, the skill level of the other people in your session, it's probably more likely that you might run into a situation where you're following yourself. And so if that's the case, then we're not talking about like the perspective of just the elite lifter. We're running the range of, you could have someone presumably in their first meet ever who is, following themselves because, the gap between them and whoever else is in their session is wider. And maybe it's because they're tired. Maybe it's because they're not sufficiently trained, or they're resting too long in between their training sessions. But I think there are any number of other factors to include, like if it's their first meet ever and they have no idea what to expect, maybe it's because they're tired, or maybe it's just because they're overwhelmed by the environment, the situation, a lot of things. But, to your guys' point, I'm actually interested in hearing from you guys ways to develop kind of that lifting, like that cardiovascular strength for lifting, right? Like it's Caleb's got a background in CrossFit, but this is very specifically not CrossFit. That doesn't, you good, Abby?
Yeah, I caught a bug.
Awesome. Good for you. We don't have to necessarily be in CrossFit style shape, but you do have to have some muscular endurance. What are some ways, Caleb mentioned EMOMs. What are some other ways you guys have either done yourselves or know of that kind of builds that in a weightlifting specific, fashion?
Triples. To frankly put, and not the triple where like you give yourself a ton of time between reps, like triples where you are purposefully trying to go and go and go. And it may not be like a PR triple, like it could just be triples, at a lower percentage, whatever, but triples where you are intentionally trying to keep moving the entire set and you're not giving yourself a break. The other thing too is like ridiculous complexes. I found that like the best shape that I've ever been in is the most impressive thing I feel like I've ever done was I did clean, hang clean, front squat, jerk. And that was like the strongest I've ever felt in my entire life. And so like doing complexes like that and pushing the weights. But again, it's a set where you're constantly moving, like you're not getting a break in between these reps. Like you are speeding yourself along through repetition.
Caleb, what do you think?
I was honestly, Abby said what I was going to say. She said triples. I was like, complexes.
Yeah.
So that's, I know for us, at least the complexes, especially early in the cycles, those I know helped me a lot. I was thinking specifically about I think we were doing block, pull, power, full snatch, stuff like that. Just getting used to doing the movement, doing the pull over and over and over again, and getting overhead, getting into the right position, knowing how it's supposed to feel, and being tired while doing it. So, and again, those EMOMs for me, I think are probably the best thing, or every other minute on the minutes are very helpful for me. That, and honestly, just overall increasing your cardio by running or walking or doing whatever, I think is also beneficial. But
where do you land on the, like, should weightlifters do traditional cardio? Should they not? Will it destroy all of their gains and they'll wither away into nothingness?
There was a time when I was in college, I coached at a CrossFit gym, CrossFit or Shackled Bottom CrossFit or Shackled Bottom Performance, I think at the time. And when you're coaching there, or when you're coaching CrossFit, I found it was best if you're going to coach a workout, you should have at least done it. So you know how to tell people how to do it. So after nationals in 2021, I was doing a little CrossFit here and there. And, that included some longer cardiovascular endurance workouts. But I never noticed my weightlifting ever getting trashed by it. So, but that was also when, it was after meet. So I wasn't necessarily trying to push it really hard. So.
Abby did some cardio just before this show. I believe you ran to CVS. Did you actually run? You told me.
Oh no, I walked. I walked through the rain and talked to Steve on the phone.
And also got saluted by a Taylor Swift fan, which was
Yes,
neat for
that
both
was
of you.
fun. She was wearing an Eras Tour t-shirt, so I saluted her and she saluted back. And you know what? Power to Taylor.
All right. Next topic. Again, Abby, I hope you have any idea what this referred to. The only bullet point was Steve.
Steve.
What was this take?
This was somebody respond to the poll, Steve, and so I posted a picture of Steve with the caption Steve, and then I got several DMs that just said Steve, to which I responded Steve. And we're gonna talk about several responses that I disagree with. This is the one that I openly agree with, Steve.
Just me. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Steve.
Is that to mean? Did I just hear you essentially confirm that I'm always right? You said you agree with
not
Steve.
at all. No, I agree with the take being Steve.
Got it. Sure. All right. What was the? Let's do the. I think I kind of remember this one. There was a person who said that for weightlifters specifically.
No. Don't skip to this one because I've got a lot to say.
Good. What was the next one? Good.
What was the next one?
You had a lot of thoughts about it.
You had the list.
I know, but now it's gone. Hold on. Give me a second.
Steve.
I know.
There we go. Steve.
And we agree. I'm sorry. Quote, shitting on people for using a belt.
Yeah. This one I like. I thought it was funny because the first half of this response was bashing lifters for using straps to like snatch, and then the second half was don't shit on people for using a belt. And I thought that was just really funny, the duality, human nature there. But yeah, I don't really think that like it should be a big deal when a lifter belts up. I think there's merit in doing things unbelted for building trunk strength, for mobility purposes, whatever the case is. And like I personally tried to go no belt as long as I can when I do my sets, but I don't think that there's anything wrong with belting up for any of the lifts. And I think that as strength athletes and athletes that are measured by how many kilos we complete the lift at, we should be able to use the tools that are at our disposal to lift more kilos and to build our strength. And so, I'm very much in the realm or, in the camp of like, it's not a big deal if someone puts a belt on, if the purpose is to move a lot of weight, if that's the goal. Similarly to like, using straps for pulls. I don't think anything wrong with doing that, or putting knee wraps on or using knee sleeves. And I think that a lot of lifters who are kind of on their high horse about not using these things, I think you're just kind of trying to pump your own egos and you got to get over it. So it doesn't make you better just because you lift less weight not using the tools. Use the tools or don't, but don't like go off at someone else for using their tools.
Okay. Yeah, Abby is very pro tool. Caleb, nobody got that. Okay. Someone will get that joke. Caleb, where do you land on using a belt?
I like your joke.
Thank you. So I just need one. I don't need like everyone to laugh. I just need one. All right.
I was a little slow, but I caught it. I got you. So I agree with Abby. I think, if you're going to, you have a heavy set of squats or you're doing clean and jerks or whatever, and you're going up to, 85, 90%, absolutely throw a belt on. If you lift in competition with it, sure. Why not? The last month leading up to a competition, whether I don't wear a belt for snatches, but I'll wear one for clean and jerks. Any clean and jerk, even if it's 50, 70 kilos, I'll put a belt on just because I want to know how the pole and the extension is going to feel with that belt on. But when I'm, a couple months out, I'll try to stay away from the equipment as much as I can, except for straps. I like straps a lot. But yeah, I think once you become reliant on that equipment, then it's a problem. Because like Abby said, like building trunk strength with doing beltless lifts, I think that's huge. I went through a phase where I still kind of do. I'll text Jake, I'll be like, I hit a beltless squat PR today. He's like, all right, whatever, dude. So stuff like that. I think going beltless is good. I think seeing what you can lift, and not saying that lifting with equipment is you not lifting it. Obviously they are tools. but knowing what you're able to do and knowing what you're capable of without that equipment, I think that also can be a confidence builder. I know I've hit some pretty big lifts without my belt, my knee sleeves, my wrist wraps, and I was super pumped about it because I knew that once I put that stuff on, everything was going to feel easier. But once you start building reliance, that kind of stuff, that's when I think it becomes a little bit of an issue.
Yeah, and I think my understanding of how belts work and why they help is not that they make you stronger. Like, I can't clean 160 kilos, and if I put a belt on, I'm still not going to be able to clean 160 kilos. Like, it doesn't make you stronger. It helps you stabilize and be firmer for the clean, the catch. So you're just able to more fully, express the strength that you already have. It's not, if your technique is shitty, it's not going to make your technique better. It's just going to help you stabilize more. So I guess I'm curious if this person had like a particular like way in which they saw a belt used that they thought was worthy of mockery or whatever. It's always interesting talking to people about when they belt, when they don't, why they belt, why they don't, whatever. I treat using a belt and using chalk similarly, where as I'm warming up, like going up through, whatever the first series of weights are, I don't use a belt, I don't use chalk. And I kind of treat it like, like if I'm getting to my top of whatever the range is that day, like it's that little extra something to help me get through whatever. So I don't typically belt or chalk until I get to like the last 2 or 3 weights of whatever I'm doing that day. But I think it's, like Caleb said, important, for, especially if you're at the beginning of a block and, whether you make or miss the lift, when you're 6 months out from a competition is going to be in no way indicative of how that next competition is going to go. Like, yeah, train the trunk strength, try to, build confidence without using the belt, all that stuff. I think that's great stuff.
Yeah. I'm pretty shameless about chalk. I got sweaty hands, so I'm going to chalk right away.
I know people who chalk just to like use the barbell, like a slick barbell, and people are using chalk. Yeah. Like, are you at risk of dropping that bar? Like, what are we doing here?
My hands are sweating just sitting here, Steve. Okay, stop.
Okay. Listen, after we record the show and you work out, if you're warming up with PVC pipe, you better chalk up ahead of time. I don't want you throwing that thing around. Okay.
Got it.
All right. Last topic. We have, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Abby. I think the position of this person was that they think that for weightlifters, low bar back squatting is, I think they said, inherently safer and more effective than high bar back squat. Is that, did I get that right? Was that their position?
That was the opinion, yes.
Okay. I can already see it on your face. You have thoughts. Share them with us.
Let Caleb go first.
All right, Caleb, what do you think about that?
I think it has its place. I don't think it can beat a high bar back squat, just in terms of translating into snatching and clean and jerking, the competition lifts. I've done low bar back squats in terms of, I think the goal of it was strengthening like my hips, and I think it worked. I think there's a time and place for them, but I think overall only training low bar is, I think you're doing yourself a little bit of a disservice.
Cool. Abby?
I think it's more than a disservice for several reasons. First of which being mobility. I want both of you to picture either of the lifts for me. Snatch or clean and jerk, doesn't matter. When would a lifter ever be in a position that is the same as being in the bottom position of a low bar back squat?
Well, I think depending on a person's setup, potentially in the start position.
Okay. Not what I was going for.
You asked the question. That's my answer.
And that's on me. And that's on me. My point here is when I train a back squat, I am training it so that, or if I'm training a squat period, I'm training it so that I can stand up out of wherever I've caught the bar. And I can't think of a single time that I've ever caught a barbell in the same position where I'd be low bar back squatting. And
Oh,
I
in the
think,
catch, yeah, sure. Certainly
right.
not catching it optimally in that position. Yeah.
Correct. It's not optimal. Like I've made a mistake if I'm in that position, and I'm more than likely going to miss because it is so suboptimal that like, something else is probably going wrong. Um to combat your pull point, like that's why we do pulls. We pull to practice pulling and building strength in that position. But like you to only do low bar back squat or to avoid high bar back squat, like you're losing out on mobility gains, you're losing out on um positional strength, like and just strength in general. Like it's not something that I see having any translation into the competition lifts other than, to Caleb's point, somebody who is not strong and needs to build leg strength. um I have never completed a low bar back squat, and I mean, I've built sufficient leg strength just doing high bar, doing front squats, whatever. And I think your time is way more used effectively by doing high bar back squatting, front squats, variations of those, pulls. There are other exercises that are way more optimal that will give you the same, if not better, strength gains while also training your mobility, your positions, and actually translating into the lifts faster.
Yeah, and to be clear, I was simply answering your question. I wasn't supporting this person's position. I'm actually
You were,
curious.
and again, and once again, that's on me. That is on me.
I'm actually curious. I don't. You know who these people are. We don't get to see those stuff, but I'm actually curious if this person was trolling. It seems like such a interesting take that I'm curious if they were just trolling. But my understanding of the primary difference between front squat and back squat high bar back squat and low bar back squat. Low bar back squat primarily, largely works posterior chain, and high bar back squat primarily, not exclusively, but primarily works anterior chain. And so, depending on what, muscle system you're trying to work on, that kind of dictates what you are trying to do. I think for the purposes of weightlifting, low bar back squatting and pulling off the floor, it can be redundant, because you're working posterior chain in both. So I personally don't do a whole lot of low bar back squatting. I don't prescribe it for the athletes that I coach. I don't commonly know that it is a thing for weightlifters that is commonly prescribed. That's not to say that it can't have any benefit. I'd be interested in seeing how that would be programmed into weightlifters program, and what else is I'd be curious about volume and timing of it in a course of a cycle and all that stuff. But
Steve's
I
take
actually
is way more diplomatic than mine is. If I saw low bar in my program, my coach might lose all credibility with me.
oh, wow, okay, all right. We can't we couldn't possibly end a hot take session without getting Caleb's thoughts on my favorite topic, which is, Caleb, how do you feel about doing full cleans with straps?
If you're doing them on blocks, sure, go for it. And I only say this because I've done it. There was a little stint
Everybody's threshold.
Yeah, definitely. There was a little stint where I was going crazy with them, doing block cleans, and this wasn't even anything that was in the program. I was just having fun doing them.
Okay.
And the reason I say blocks is if you miss, you've got at least something to catch that weight before your forearms getting cracked between the floor and the bar.
Are you perhaps suggesting that cleaning with straps is inherently more dangerous than cleaning without straps?
I would say if you're full cleaning, absolutely. Yeah, I'll throw on. So for power cleans, I'll absolutely throw them on like in the beginning of a cycle.
Okay.
Gosh, it makes it so much easier. But
I'm
yeah,
curious.
I would say. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm curious. When you say it makes it so much easier, what is it about them that makes it easier? Like, is it the pull or is it getting into that position?
I'd say arguably both.
Okay.
My front rack mobility definitely has lacked in the last couple of years. I've noticed being able to get in that front rack position with straps definitely feels a little better. It's also nice. I know we were talking about chalk just a second ago. We clean our bars at RBA. It's nice not having to worry about cleaning your bar after. So it's nice to use straps every now and then and not even have to worry about it, not even have to touch it.
What a weightlifter answer. Is it going to be more convenient for me to do it this way? Oh, then I guess I won't pull the big reds off of the rack. Yeah, no, I'll just use 3 little greens. It'll be fine. It's essentially the same.
That's funny.
Yep.
Okay. I think this is our cue, Abby. I think we have to end the show here. We're not allowed to entertain guests who support cleaning with straps, but I guess we'll make an exception for Caleb. He's a good dude. He's a strong lifter, and I want to hear more about.
He's a good dude. See, that got a bigger laugh than your tool joke, Steve. Look at that.
Yeah, that's because it was a funnier joke. All right, I want to hear more about you, Caleb. So you, you are not exclusively in this category, but you are among the local lifters. I think maybe an example of a lifter who has done very well in both realms. A very high level weightlifter, pretty high level CrossFit athlete. Which one did you start with, and how did you kind of transition from whichever one you started with into the other?
Absolutely. So I started with CrossFit. Started when I was in high school, and I was doing that in conjunction with high school sports. Primarily cross country, and whatever I was doing in middle school too. But ended up liking CrossFit a lot, decided to keep doing that. Did fairly well, realized if I wanted to hang with the big dogs, as in the adults, as we were talking about senior nationals, it's nationals. Like if I wanted to go, compete with the individuals, I needed to get stronger. And so that's when I kind of transitioned into weightlifting full time in about 2019. Just started weightlifting. It was odd not doing cardio, but I got used to it. But ever since then, I think I told myself I'd do it for a year and try to get to where I wanted to be, hit some certain numbers. And I did it a lot quicker than I thought it was going to be. Ended up signing up for junior nationals, did it, and had a great time, rode that high for another 2 weeks after that. And I was like, I want to keep doing this. So that's kind of where I started into weightlifting. And
you mentioned, go ahead, Abby.
So you mentioned that it was weird not doing cardio when you made the switch to weightlifting. Were there ever times where you felt like, oh my God, I need to do CrossFit right now? Or did you just kind of stay the course with weightlifting?
I definitely had a couple times when I was in CrossFit. I had a conversation with Jake actually a little over a year in with him.
Hey, just real quick, can you briefly, who is Jake and where does he coach? What does he do?
Absolutely. Jake Rowell is he's the coach over RVA weightlifting at the RVA PT location, RVA Performance Training. He owns that gym as well. And I know he's been on the show here before. And for anyone who knows him, he's a super great dude and probably the most chill dude in the world. But
he's gonna be the centerpiece of our soft elbow swag, but we'll get to that in a later thing. Anyway, you were having a conversation with Jake Rowell about a year in. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go.
Definitely. No worries. Yep. Had a conversation with him about a year in of basically me. It was right before Nationals in 2021, basically saying like, CrossFit is where my heart is, or at least it has a very special place in my heart, and it still does. Ended up continuing with weightlifting, and Nationals went very well that year. Kind of realized, okay, this is where I'm meant to be. And from there on out, again, it just kept going. So
you mentioned kind of like riding that high from that first junior nationals experience. What was it about the competition environment or competition feeling specific to weightlifting that kind of like got you hooked? Was there anything particular that stood out to you?
I remember really wanting to make the junior Pan Am team when I was that age. And I remember putting up a total that I didn't make it that year, but it was enough that it could get my name on the list. And I remember doing that, getting medals, and really just, first meet, flew all the way across the country for it, which was kind of funny. I had a conversation with another parent about that. But ultimately just kind of that experience alone of a national meet, because I never done one before. And so I definitely enjoyed it. Everyone being there as well. That was when they were still doing all the categories, the youth or age group categories, I should say, together. So it was quite a big event. I would say maybe a little bit bigger at the time than the Nationals week is now. And it was just cool to be in that environment. I come from CrossFit, like the major events then. It was similar to that, not as big as those, but similar to it, and it was something I missed. So.
And you started kind of transitioning, if I heard you correctly, from CrossFit to weightlifting, and you said 2019. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
And then, sir, oh my God, the first time on the history of this show I've ever been called sir. Thank you so much.
Don't let it go to your head.
Too late. So you've done very well at national meets. Yeah, two-time American Open champion. I think was it the 2023 Nationals where you posted the 333 total?
Yep. Yes, sir.
As an 89, right? Which is a massive total for anybody, but certainly for that category. How did you find your development more from the mental side? I mean, the physical side can any number of things can vary. Your athletic background, your genetics, your coaching, your programming, all that stuff. But just from the mental side of competing, how did you kind of develop in that regard from 2019 when you started getting into the sport, and then you go full-time, or at least full-time-ish, and get to the point where you're doing that kind of level of performance at the biggest national meet in the country?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. So for me, I think starting just like anyone starting something new, you're a little timid. You don't really know what to expect. So for me, going into a new sport, not entirely new, because we snatch and clean and jerk in CrossFit. So kind of what you're getting into. You just don't know what your numbers are for your weight class. That's at the top. Obviously, you look them up, but you don't know the rest of the lifters. So once you're around those guys, that was another thing that I was also surprised by going to national meets, was you see the same people over and over and over again, and it's great. They end up being your best friends. So I think in 2019 or 2020, when I did junior nationals for the first time, that was really cool. Kind of getting my toes in the water, kind of seeing what it's all about. COVID happened that year. So that whole year, I think I was able to lift in the gym a little bit during that summer period, but a lot of garage lifting was done. Kind of felt like I hit a little bit of a peak there and just really wasn't moving much. I also wasn't taking care of my body and doing recovery. 19-year-old me, 20-year-old me didn't really care about that. I just wanted to lift heavy. And so after AO finals in that year, which was also nationals, I put up a total that was heavy enough to qualify myself as an 89 for nationals. And that's really all I wanted to do before I moved up a weight class, because I knew I wanted to do that. So once that happened, I made it a point to start drinking protein shakes and taking creatine and doing what I needed to do to take care of my body and actually be intentional about what I'm doing. And so that, I would say 3 months I had a lot of development between that December, January into March. So that was where I got a lot of my confidence from for a lot of, the lifts going up to national meets.
And when you say into March, am I remembering correctly that you were on the Rogue stage at the Arnold that year in 22?
So this would have been a year prior.
Right. Okay.
So that was March then was also when they did AO1 at Salt Lake City, Utah, I think.
That's right. Okay. That was, yep. All right.
Yep.
I'm familiar now.
And yeah. And I was cheap. I was like, I don't want to fly out there, but I still want to do the meet just kind of see where I'm at. We ended up doing it virtually because that was one of the times they still offered it. Very gracious that Jake set all that up at the gym just for me to do it. Came in and put up a total I was almost surprised with that I did. Felt rode that high again. Felt very happy with it. And then, knew that, hey, just, this is the base, keep playing it and train for nationals, see what happens. Did nationals, had another great meet, hit more numbers that surprised the daylights out of me. And pretty much from there on out, I just kind of knew what I was capable of. I just needed to kind of grow into it. And that is kind of where it was.
As you were making that change, like, for all intents and purposes, like, maybe taking the goals that you had a little bit more seriously in terms of your nutrition and all the other things that you started doing, as opposed to just perhaps like relying on youth testosterone and caffeine or whatever your earlier strategy was. Like, when you started making those other changes, I imagine it wasn't just nutrition, but it certainly included that. One, how long did it take for you to start noticing differences? And two, like, can you recall like what some of the differences were that you noticed from when you, like, how X weeks or X months in, I started recovering better, sleeping better, lifting better, whatever those things were?
There's one very specific example I remember, and it's kind of funny. So I remember at the time, what I would do is, and I don't know how much Jake supported this, but after every meet, I would take some time off and just do what I want to do lifting wise, which, I still do a little bit. I'm just a little less reckless with it, I think, now. So back then I remember I really had this idea that I just wanted to hit a 600-pound deadlift at some point. I don't care when, I just wanted to hit it. And so I started deadlifting one day, used straps. I was deadlifting one day, took creatine, and then the next day I remember vividly mowing the lawn and remembering, because I think I leaned over to grab something at some point and my back felt a little bit sore. And I was like, that's right, I did do that yesterday. I completely forgot. Like, normally that would have put me on the couch for a while, but it was like,
welcome to adulthood.
Right? But yeah, I was like, like this stuff actually works. But then numbers for like other stuff started going up. Like my push press started going up, deadlift started going up, squats started feeling stronger. And that's, I think, where I got confidence for just the main lifts of like, I think I can hit this number if these numbers have increased this much to here. I think I can hit this. And for the most part, I was right, thankfully. So that's kind of where I saw it.
Okay.
So do you? Go ahead.
No,
I was going to say, when you take creatine, do you dry scoop it or do you mix it with something?
So I would always mix it. The brand I buy is True Athlete Creatine.
Nice. Okay.
And so they sell it at Vitamin Shop. It's the only kind there that's NSF, at least that I've noticed. So when I buy it or when I go there, I try to get the powder, but occasionally they don't have it. They just have the capsules. But when I first started getting it, it was a powder. I would mix it in my post-workout protein shake and just go from there. So
you're a mixer. Okay.
Yeah, I'm boring. So
no, that's okay. Some people take it too far. Anyway, go ahead, Steve.
Abby lines it up on the table and just snorts it before she takes her lift. Isn't that right, Abby? Isn't that what you said? No? Okay.
No, I clap it and I ingest it that way, powdery.
You absorb it you absorb it transdermally. That's right. That's good.
Exactly.
Okay. So Caleb, you just did lift PD. You cleaned 195. What? Just out of curiosity, what percentage is 195 a clean for you compared to your max clean?
Jeez.
Can I do some math?
Sure.
I'm almost scared to hear this answer.
All right. So 195.
Like 79%.
It's right there, just shy of 95% from the floor.
What is your best clean ever?
From the floor, I've hit 206.
Whew.
Okay.
Neat.
It felt like 206.
So, the point of me bringing that up is you're clearly in very good lifting shape right now. You're going to be competing at nationals. You talked about some of the goals that you had, a couple of years ago, but what at this point in your life, you got a full-time job, you got other things going on outside the gym. What are your goals right now in the near future for weightlifting?
So, I mean, it was always to just right now it is just to be the best I can be, which is a very generic answer. But I also want to see what shakes out with these new weight classes. I know for the 89, just to go to any international meet, you had to hit, I think, like a 345 kilo total, which I have gotten close to it in training. Just, as you've said before, I've hit 333 in comp, which is, you're shy of it by 12 kilos. So that did seem kind of steep for me. So I want to see what's going on with these new weight classes and see where I think the culprit of that total being risen that much was probably Carlos Cesar. So now that he's likely going to the 94, hopefully that brings us down a little bit.
Okay.
I want to see what happens there. And the goal is to, get out onto an international stage, wear Team USA, which would be awesome. But again, I think ultimately it's just the generic answer, be the best I can be, if take whatever I can get, take whatever invite to whatever stage or platform I can get and just enjoy it. Stay healthy.
I tried to do the best research that I could, but I don't know if you guys are aware, there's not like a weightlifter database that I can find, but as best I can find, obviously correct me if I'm wrong, your best snatch is 146?
In competition, yes, sir.
In competition, 146, and then is it 192 in clean and jerk?
Yep.
So, I mean, I listen, no one knows better than me that it doesn't work this way. But, like, if you were to hit both of those lifts, you'd be at, 342? Which is right there, like, you're in play with what you need, yeah?
Gotcha. Okay.
I guess my point in saying that is, like, this is not some, like, pie-in-the-sky goal. Like, you're in range. Like, you're in play to do this stuff.
Right.
For you specifically, what do you feel like are kind of like maybe the one or two crucial things for your ability to perform maximum, like to express, your maximal ability on a stage going into a competition?
So one thing I've realized this cycle and the cycle going into nationals 2 years ago was snatch pulls and standard clean pulls. As long as I'm doing those in addition to doing standard squats and whatever to just build overall strength, I feel a lot more confident in my snatch and clean when I do pulls a lot, as you should. But it's, for some reason, it took me this long to figure out that makes me feel that way. So those are definitely one thing. Another thing is gaining weight and filling out my weight class.
Okay.
So that's one thing I need to work on personally and do. But yeah, I mean, ultimately just doing what I need to. I have a lot of just kind of free time in the afternoons after I'm done lifting and, doing dinner and whatnot. And I find myself sitting in front of the TV a lot. I need to actually take time. All right, get down on the floor, stretch, mobilize, maybe drink an extra protein shake, do what you got to do there. Be intentional. So I'd say that itself.
Okay. And we would be remiss if we didn't ask this question. Jake Rowell is your coach. He's I put myself in this position. He's an alum of the show. Did I get that right? No?
I think so.
I messed up again?
You just cut off the rest of the
He's been on the
words
show
that
before.
you
That's
didn't
what
have to be
I'm saying.
correct.
Anyway, he's a friend of the show. What is, as a coach, what is his biggest quirk? Like you're like, man, he's a great guy. He's a great coach, but something's off with this dude. Like, what is his biggest quirk as a coach?
Jake is, and like I said at the beginning of this, he is probably the most chill person you meet. That's it right there. He is so relaxed, so calm, so chill. And me personally, I need people like that in my life because I can get worked up, especially when it comes to weightlifting. And so Jake's kind of like, hey, calm down. You're fine. Relax. That being said, when something goes sideways and he loses his mind, something really went wrong. But other than that, he's really calm. Me and my girlfriend have laughed a couple of times because he likes to spend time in his own world a lot. When he finds something he likes, he gets obsessed about it. We were staying in Tucson, Arizona for AO finals last year. Yeah. And Airbnb we were in, it had a cowboy pool in the back. I don't know if you guys are familiar with those, but it's like this big steel tin. It's like, I don't know, probably has a radius of like 7 feet, filled with water. And Jake saw this and was like, I'm going to learn about this. And I forget who was lifting at the time. It wasn't one of our athletes, but we were at the convention center. And he was on his phone looking up how to make a cowboy pool. Or maybe he wasn't looking up how to make it, but he was learning about them while we were there. And me and my girlfriend were cracking up. It was just, it's funny to watch him in his own world. So
Okay. All right. Before we let you go, Caleb, do you have any questions for us?
Man, I can't think of any. Honestly, I know I should have some, and I know I have some, but I just don't know what they are.
That's right. Abby creates a poll once a week. So even if it doesn't fit in the poll question, just send it there and we will put it in the text thread that we have with Kevin Pay, and then we'll discuss it on our next show. That's where we store all of our show ideas. Well, Caleb, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was great to have you. Good luck at the Nationals. I'm very excited to see what you do there. And perhaps one day we'll have you and Jake on together so we can all learn about what cowboy pools are and how to make them, maybe. I don't know. But for now, that's going to wrap up this week's show. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you in a couple weeks.
Sounds great.
Bye.